So next, Paul talks about the way in which Jesus changes and alters the way in which we change. What an incredible concept. We all are subject to change throughout our lives, but Jesus alters that. He makes us change differently. Take a look with me at the second verse. Do not be conformed to this world, says Paul, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. So let's get into that for a moment and reflect on exactly what Paul is saying. He's highlighting two words, conform and transform. So the first word, conform, is one of my favourite words in Greek. It's absolutely marvellous. Marvellous. I can't speak English, let alone Greek. Anyway, it's absolutely marvellous, and it is suskomatizo. Isn't that just bizarre? I can say suskomatizo, but I can't say marvellous. I'm going to reflect on that later. I digress. What does suskomatizo actually mean? It's translated conform, and it was used to describe a number of things in the ancient world. Chiefly, it was repeating a pattern. Suskomatizo took place when someone was doing something and you copied them doing it. By repetition, you saw the way in which someone was patterning something and you join in. Another use of suskomatizo was to imply and to talk about people being bent and squeezed and twisted and forced into a specific shape. Conforming to the world is sometimes a very dangerous and an awful thing. And Jesus says that his followers are called away from this pattern. The world isn't the drum that we march to anymore. We are not trying to fit in with the world. We are trying to allow Jesus to do an incredible work in us. Now that work Paul describes as transformation. And that is a word that in Greek I'm sure will be familiar to many of you. It is metamorpho, and that's where we get metamorphosis. It means a very, very fundamental change from the very innermost parts of your being right the way through to the outermost parts of your being. Another way to describe it would be being born again. In the same way that a caterpillar is born and hatches and starts off life, then it goes into a pupae phase and it is born again as a butterfly. Just so, Christians, those who follow Jesus, have undergone and are in the process of undergoing transformation or metamorphosis. They're changing fundamentally. There is a little surprise that in his second letter to the Corinthians in chapter 5, Paul says these words. He says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. So you are fundamentally changed and different. I had a friend who became a Christian, and before he became a Christian he was a thief, and he tried to make amends for some of the things he had done wrong, and he tried to give back various monies and other things that he had stolen. However, there was a point where he had some cash that he could not return and he didn't know what to do with it. So he, after praying about it, decided to go into Oxfam, and it really was a considerable sum of money, and he thought, good plan, I'll simply hand it over to the girl behind the till and she can put it to some good use. So he handed over this envelope containing an enormous amount of cash and turned to walk out of the Oxfam. As he did so, the girl behind the counter opened the envelope, was shocked at the amount of money in it, and stopped him and said, what on earth is this? What's happening? And he stammered and said, it's a gift I've been asked to hand in from a friend who died. And then he walked out of the shop. Now it's interesting because in every sense, my friend got that absolutely correct. The old person was gone. He was born anew in Jesus Christ. He was a new creation. There wasn't going to be, and there hasn't been, any going back. He had died to his past life and was born again. He was transformed, metamorphosed, and it's permanent and it's wonderful and it's marvelous, and it isn't like the world's conforming. It's not just repeating a pattern. It's a fundamental, deep change. When Jesus transforms you, you stay transformed. You're no longer simply copying patterns or being squeezed into different shapes by the world. It's wonderful. He alters the way we change.